Hi, and welcome to Fabric Bias. It is sometime mid-December-ish, and this is going to be an experiment for me. So I made this, and I put out another video on that. It's a gift card holder, really basic. My goal was to see if I could sew this with one cut of fabric, and I put out another video, I think, on this one. That was my experiment trying to figure it out. It did work out after a few more than a few tries on how to do it, but I did figure it out. And but my goal wasn't to make one of these. My goal was to figure out how I could make a whole bunch of them all at once, really easily. So I've got this done, and I know how I can make it work to cut it out of a single cut of fabric. And I'm going to make a video on that eventually, but I wanted to see if I could make a whole bunch of them all at once. So what I've done here is I've cut my fabric piece out. It's 17 inches high by the width of the fabric. And what I've done is I've already made a mistake. I'll tell you I've already made a mistake. I've marked it. Well, first of all, you mark from the short end, and this is actually up here. Let's see if I can zoom out a little bit. There we go. This is actually the short end, even though it's the long end of the fabric, because this is the height. I'm going to cut this as a bag. This is going to be a bag or envelope, and this is going to be an envelope here. And then so this is the short end, and I marked from the short edge. I marked 1 1/4 inch down all the way across. So it hit this bag, this, I'm going to call them bags, this bag, this bag, this bag, and all the way around on that. So I've already marked it. So that makes it a lot easier just to begin with. Now, the mistake that I made here is that my final cut is supposed to be 6 inches. And so I measured over from the edge 6 inches and then a 1/2 inch because I'd cut between them 6 inches. Well, that's wrong. My cut is 6 inches. My sewing is actually a 1/4 inch seam on each side. So it's actually going to be 5 1/2. And so I've got it set up so I'm marking, this one's particularly wrong, but this is 6 inch and then a 1/4 inch on each side. So these are going to end up too wide. I'm going to go ahead and, since this is an experiment, I'm going to go ahead and keep it this way rather than remarking it all. But next time around, I'll know better. So what I'll actually do, next one is go a 1/4 inch in for my seam allowance, 5 1/2 inches, and then another 1/4 inch. And that's, I'll be marking it, let's see. The first one I'll mark it at 5, well, do my 1/4 inch mark so that I'll have my mark there. And then I will mark 5 1/2 because that's the final width. And then I'll make a mark there. And then I'll do a 1/2 inch, which will be the 1/4 inch on this bag and the 1/4 inch on this bag, and then do 5 1/2, and then 1/2 inch, 5 1/2, 1/2 inch, 5 1/2. That's going to make it pretty snug, I think, on my card, because my card is actually, oh no, my card is 5 inches. So that actually will give it plenty of room on each side to give it a wiggle. So this one is going to end up kind of big, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm going to go with that. So, all right. Kind of a bummer to make a mistake right in the beginning, but that's okay. That's the learning process, and it's not really that going to be a big of a deal. So they just won't be snug. But I could put something else in them too. That'll make them more flexible. All right, I'm going to get to making my first step. So the first step in my sewing process here is, after I've made this line 1 1/4 inches down all the way across, I'm going to take this back to the machine and I'm going to go right sides together. Open this up, right sides together. I'm going to fold it this way so that my short ends are together. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch this closed. Now I do have this excess piece where it was too much, so I think I'm going to cut that off first so I'm not stitching it together. But then I'm going to sew all the way across at 6 inches, and then when I'm done with that, I'm going to sew these marks from here to here, here to here, and that's going to close up what eventually will be my flap. So I'm going to go and do that, and then I will be right back. Okay, I couldn't do it. I had to go back and remark it. So I put the 1/4 inch mark here. I really didn't need that because I could, my sewing machine foot will be here, so I didn't need that measuring, but I put it in just for, good measure, no pun intended. And then 5 1/2 inches, and then from here it's a 1/2 inch over because you have a 1/4 inch for this bag and a 1/4 inch for this bag. So that white line there, that's my mistake line. And the blue lines, I don't know if you can tell the difference. That's white and these are blue. So that's where my next bag is going to start, where the seam is. And then I'm 5 1/2 inches over, and then a 1/2 inch to the next one. I didn't measure from the 5 1/2 over here to this mark. I actually measured from this mark because my ruler is 6 inches wide. So I went 5.5, marked the 1/2 inch, and then I measured from the first mark over here and marked this one because that would be 5.5 inches since my ruler is 6 inches. And that's pretty much what I did. As I scooched it over, did the 1/2 inch mark, and then I scooched over here, lined it up on that first mark, and went 6 inches over and marked it here, all the way across on it. So I didn't erase the lines here, but I did come back over here and I worked it. You can kind of see it, I faded out. I erased as much as I could of the lines here, so it's much neater and easier to follow. Now the other thing I did was I did mark it on here because I think it'll be easier to see if it's on the fabric. But I did on my machine here also put, it's kind of dark over here, sorry, the light's on the other side, but I added a piece of painter's tape here and I marked it. My machine actually has markings here, but I did measure and check and mark that this is at 5.5 inches so that when I go and sew, I can follow this line as well, although I think because of the bulk of the fabric I won't be able to see it, so I wanted it on the fabric just in case. But if this works, I'd rather do this than keep marking over there. So I'm gonna try it, see how it goes. Here I go. Now I get to sew. Back in a flash. All right, I'm convinced now that this is going to be one of those if it can go wrong, it will go wrong projects. So I opted, instead of using the marks that I marked, which I should have used, to use the guide that I had put on my machine, so the painter's tape that I put down on my machine. What I didn't notice was on this ruler, I started from here instead of from this mark, so I'm slightly off on my stitching here. It's going to be okay though. It's not enough to be too much of a problem, and I'm going to be using that guide from here on out to sew, and not my lines that I marked, which I should have used in the first place. But I wanted to see if the other would work because that would save a lot of time if I make another batch of these, which I am intending to do. So the other problem I had was this line here, which I was stitching to. I had a really hard time seeing it when I was sewing. I did pretty good on hitting those marks, but I think I might put another piece of tape that goes behind my needle so I know when I slide up to there, that's about where I'm going to stop. And so I'll have this mark and that mark to kind of use as a guide. Although I did pretty much okay on those. So, okay, on to my next step. So now I'm going to take and let's see. Oh, now I'm going to go read my directions. I'll be right back. All right, so what I needed to do next. So when I was sewing just the single one, I actually just did a finger crease here. But since this is so long and I needed a crease, the next step here was to put a crease along this opposite fold line. I went and real quick and I ran to the iron and I did it just because it would be it was just quicker to turn the iron on. So when I was doing the single, like I said, I just did a finger crease here to put the crease in, but here you need a crease at this point here. So ran to the iron and I did that. And so now what I'm going to do is open this piece up and still right sides together. I'm going to take and match that pressed crease with the seam here. So I'm going to make sure that my pressed crease is lined up here. And that's going to divide my bag here in half. So this half or this half, one or the other, will end up as the lining and the other will end up as the body piece. So I'm going to go down this entire length and make sure that that's matched up through to this side before I move on. And then once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and sew 3 sides of each bag, leaving one side open. So I'll be pinning this together instead of clipping. But I want to sew here and here, and that's without making sure that I don't sew this flap here. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to get it all matched up, pinned up, and ready to go so that I can get to sewing. And I'm going to ignore the marks that I have on my paper or my fabric at this point because I used the marks on my machine to guide. And I need my seams to match here where I sewed. I might have to redo this video. This is not going to look very good. Anyway, I'm going to get going. Let's see how it turns out. Okay, I got through a step without making a mistake. So let's see what I did. All right. What I did was I pinned and made sure everything was lined up. And the way I did that was I actually took the crease and I put a pin down the crease. And that way I could tell I was matching this side to this side by feeling the pin through there. And then I pinned it all together. And then I've sewn 3 sides of each bag. So 1, 2, 3, and this one's open. And then there's this one, this one, this one, and this is open. That's sewn, that's sewn, that's sewn. And then these 2 are both open because that's sewn on this side. So I just went down and made sure that I sewed 3 sides of each. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut them all apart to finish off what I'm doing. So, I'm definitely going to have to do this again just to get it down right. But I think it's going okay so far. So I'll see you back in a second. And here they are. They're almost done. So I've turned them right side out and then stitched down the side that was open. So my turning gap, I guess you could say. And you could, if you wanted to, do a ladder stitch so you couldn't see it, but this is going to be the inside. So any one of these where the stitching is, and you can see it, that's your lining piece. And so all I have left, and I also went through and top stitched all of my flap pieces. So you can see here, it stops here. That's where the flap is, and that's pretty easy to see. So it's really easy to do. So all I have left to do is now put the lining side into the body, outside exterior piece, tuck that in, and try not to bump my camera. Oh, did it anyway. There we go. And give that a good press. And there it is. So you have to decide how you want to close it. You could have done hook and loop tape, snaps. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and I could have done it because the seam is right here. I actually could have put ribbon in here and then it would have come out with the ribbon on it, but it wasn't that hard on this single one that I did. I just sewed it across the top there, and I might do that again. Actually, I will do that with these because I think I'm just going to close these with ribbon because I've got a really large spool of ribbon here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and these will be done. So I'm going to get to flipping for all of these and pressing and sewing. Be back in a flash. Ta-da! So there they are. Despite making multiple mistakes, I actually got them to work out. I think it does work out great. I'm glad I did a video on it because I didn't write any of my notes down, so I'm going to have to go back and watch my video to see how to do it because I do plan on making some more of these. I don't think I remember to say this in the beginning, but I did actually purposely make it so that the cards would fit in with the height of the card going this way instead of making a long, tall thing, because I just think it goes in easier in this direction than if it were to go the other way. So I don't know, now I proved myself wrong. There you go. And I added, let's see, it's about 21 inches of ribbon, and I just did it so that there was a short tail on one side and a long tail on the other side. And I did some of them where the short tail went this way, and I did some where the short tail was on this side, and I tried to see which was better, and honestly, it didn't seem to make a difference for me. So, yeah, either way seems to work. And there, it can be tied up just like that. And there we go. And I do like that better than the snaps because I think it's a little bit more festive. So again, I don't know if it'll hold up in the laundry, but you know, that's okay. They look really good now. And I think they came out cute. So when I sew them the next time, I'll do the 1 1/4 inch line across the short end, which is really the long end till you cut them up, but the short end of the bag. So I know I like that marking, although I think I could also put the painter's tape on my machine at about a 1 1/4 inch so I would know where to stop at. I might do both and see how that goes, but I'm not going to do the other lines that separate each bag because I think I like the marking that I put on the machine with the painter's tape. That works better and it saves me the trouble of having to mark it. But I know I'm getting a pretty good measurement from there because that's, even though I did the markings on these, I didn't use them. So I know the one on the machine works, and that's just another step that goes a little bit faster. So there they are. Here is the single original, the 2 prototypes, which I still have to put the ribbons on, and the really prototype that I didn't even bother to finish with. But I'm going to keep this because all I have to do is rip it apart. It's got super huge stitches in it, and I'll use it for something else. So there they are. I hope you like them. I hope that wherever, whenever you're at, you're having a great time. And thanks for watching.